In an era where automotive design leaned increasingly toward angular aggression and chrome bravado, one shape remained defiantly round, unmistakably nostalgic, and surprisingly practical: the Volkswagen Super Beetle. This wasn't just a minor update to a classic icon. It was a reimagination that dared to stay true to its roots while adapting to the changing dynamics of the 1970s. The silhouette remained familiar, but subtle transformations beneath the surface whispered about evolution. At a glance, the differences might seem invisible to the casual observer, but a closer inspection reveals that this Beetle was not merely super in name. The elongated nose, about 2 inches longer than the original, hinted at a re-engineered front end. Volkswagen had introduced McPherson struts, replacing the torsion bar front suspension of the standard Beetle. It was a move that brought modern handling characteristics, improved ride comfort, and extra space in the front trunk. That might sound like a minor shift, but in a car where every inch matters, it was transformative. This wasn't the Beetle designed purely for the post-war masses. This was the Beetle for an audience that demanded more without giving up the charm of simplicity. On the outside, the Super Beetle didn't scream for attention. Its charm lay in its restraint. The round headlights remained, framed by soft, bulbous fenders that had become synonymous with Volkswagen's most enduring symbol. Chrome accents traced around the windows and bumpers, echoing a bygone era even as plastic and rubber trim were beginning to take over the automotive world. The curve of the rear engine bay remained unchanged, like a signature preserved across generations. But behind that familiarity, the Super Beetle stood on a foundation that had been carefully reinforced. Larger, more sophisticated than its predecessor, and yet unmistakably a Beetle. Step inside, and the upgrades become more apparent. The dashboard was more modern, more user-friendly. Gone were the flat panels of old. In came curved shapes, redesigned vents, and even a touch of faux wood in some trims. The steering wheel, still thin by modern standards, was now complemented by improved ergonomics. Volkswagen engineers had widened the scope of comfort, adding a new layer of insulation to reduce cabin noise and vibrations. For a vehicle whose earliest iterations bordered on Spartan, this was luxury. Bucket seats offered firmer support, while the increased front legroom gave taller drivers a reason to smile. Every control had a certain mechanical honesty to it. The click of the switches, the springiness of the gear lever, even the tug of the handbrake, it all felt connected. No digital gimmicks here, just the tactile joy of driving. Ventilation systems had been improved, defrosting and heating more effectively than before. The Super Beetle became a more livable daily driver in colder climates, shedding the reputation of being solely a fair-weather car. Storage compartments, though modest, were thoughtfully integrated. And for families, the rear bench, though snug, remained usable, especially for children. Under the rear decklid, the Super Beetle still carried an air-cooled, flat-4 engine. Depending on the year and market, this engine ranged from 1.3 to 1.6 liters, and while the horsepower figures remained modest, typically under 60, it wasn't built for speed. This was a machine designed for reliability, simplicity, and mechanical elegance. The horizontally opposed cylinders produced a sound that was more than exhaust noise. It was a pulse, a rhythm, an unmistakable heartbeat of a design philosophy rooted in doing more with less. Mated to a 4-speed manual transmission, the engine delivered power to the rear wheels with an honesty that modern cars rarely replicate. Driving a Super Beetle wasn't about rapid acceleration, it was about engagement. The engine thrummed behind you like a companion rather than a machine. Hills required momentum, gears demanded attention, and cruising felt like a dance rather than a sprint. For some, that experience was frustrating. But for enthusiasts, it was pure joy. Despite modest performance figures, fuel economy remained a highlight. Many Super Beetles could achieve between 25 and 30 miles per gallon, depending on driving style and conditions. This kind of efficiency, paired with legendary mechanical durability, made the Super Beetle a popular choice for college students, first-time drivers, and practical-minded families. Maintenance was refreshingly straightforward. With parts readily available and a community of passionate owners, keeping a Super Beetle on the road was more a labor of love than a financial burden. But the story of the Super Beetle wasn't purely mechanical. It was cultural. It arrived during a time of change: Vietnam protests, counterculture revolutions, and shifting attitudes toward consumption. And the Super Beetle, intentionally or not, became a symbol for those seeking alternatives. It was a car that didn't flaunt wealth or performance. It projected humility, individuality, and a kind of quirky defiance against the big, thirsty sedans of Detroit. Even with its upgraded features, the Super Beetle remained approachable, unintimidating, and deeply human. Special editions added color to its journey. From the sporty Super Beetle S to the Sunbug with its gold paint and sunroof, Volkswagen understood that variety mattered. Some versions arrived with bold interiors, others with unique graphics or trim elements. Each variant added another brushstroke to a car already painted with personality. By the late 1970s, the Super Beetle had grown into something more than just a model, it had become an icon within an icon. Perhaps one of the most notable contributions of the Super Beetle came from its cabriolet variant. Unlike the standard Beetle convertible, the Super Beetle convertible benefited from the same front-end upgrades, delivering a smoother ride and better handling with the top down. It became a symbol of youthful freedom and weekend adventures. Its fabric roof folded neatly, and while the rear visibility could be compromised, the feeling of wind rushing through the cabin more than compensated. In coastal towns and college campuses, the Super Beetle convertible wasn't just a car, it was an accessory to life itself. By the time production wound down in the early 1980s, the Super Beetle had cemented its place as both an evolution and an ode. It never lost its original spirit but instead embraced change where it mattered. The McPherson struts weren't just a technical improvement, they were a message. That Volkswagen was willing to listen to the needs of modern drivers without betraying its heritage. And for that, the Super Beetle earned respect not just from fans of the original, but from new generations who discovered its unique appeal. Today, the Super Beetle lives on in garages, collector shows, and memory. It's not uncommon to see one lovingly restored, its paint gleaming under a spring sun, its engine burbling like a well-fed cat. Owners speak of them not in terms of torque or top speed, but in stories. Road trips, first dates, breakdowns that turned into friendships. These are the metrics by which the Super Beetle is measured. Not 0 to 60, but heartbeats per mile. In a world filled with tech-laden, over-designed vehicles, the Super Beetle remains a reminder of something simpler, more honest. It's a rolling contradiction, modern yet old-fashioned, upgraded yet untouched. And that is its magic. It doesn't need to be fast, or luxurious to be loved. It just needs to be what it has always been, a car that feels like a friend.